Well, hello again. This is early in the morning. It's not quite so hot, but it's hot enough. God, I got to get out there and clean up that garage. It is a total mess, and I can't stand it any longer. First, check on our bumper guards in the evapor rust and see if it's time to take them out. So let's do it. Oh my goodness, don't they look good? Let's see how our bolts and our clamps are doing there. Oh, that looks good there. There's a nice looking bolt right there. Well, they're looking pretty darn good now. I gave them a little wire brushing all the way around the best I could. Down in there it was kind of tough, but I used a paintbrush for that. I'm just going to let them sit one more night. One more night, and they look nice and shiny. I'll be able to buff them babies up right. Speaking of buffing, I have a 6-inch buffer now. On Father's Day, my son and his son bought me, they gave me a $100 Harbor Freight gift card, and I've been hanging on it all this time. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, you know. I don't go to Harbor Freight but maybe once a year. And then I got thinking, I said, you know, I got a lot of stainless steel I got to buff. Maybe I should use that thing to get a buffer. Now this is a 1/2-inch arbor that's got a 3,450 RPM thing, and 6-inch. Comes with 2 pads. I'll be putting it all together here probably tomorrow. I don't know. I've been kind of busy today doing other things. And I need to figure out, I'm deciding right now whether to buy a stand for it. And, you know, put a stand that I can store in the corner. I mean, the garage is a mess. I've got to get out here and get it cleaned. Tomorrow's the day. I'm going to get out here in the morning and make it happen. So this is going to be kind of nice when it gets done. We'll be able to do our buffing with it. And now, in keeping with our rust and buff theme here today, I have special plans for this rust. I did a little more cogitating, okay? I looked around, I cogitated here, I cogitated there, and I came up with a magnificent cogitate. And you guys are going to see what that is. I don't think it's going to involve the original idea of this. It might. I might knock some of it down with there. And you're going to see something really cool, I hope. I expect it to look cool. Well, I washed the bumper guards out in the sink with soap and water and got them all cleaned up, and then dried them off and stuck them in the oven on low heat on the warm setting. So while they're in there drying out completely, it's time to clean up this horrible, horrible situation. I don't even have any room to put a screwdriver down. I have a pile of bolts and nuts and washers that are all rusty that came out of the front end of the car. Who knows where else. I'm going to give old Vapor Rust a chance to see what they can do with them. I'm just going to stick them down in there and let them soak. You know, I'm glad I bought this 3.5-gallon pail of this stuff, but I'll tell you what, it is a messy job. I'm glad I decided to put it inside of here, because every time you pick up the basket or whatever, it drips and drips. Yeah, I can imagine what the 5-gallon one is like. Let's see if this thing's going to jump around on the table. Let's fire it up. This is a very heavy base, by the way. I didn't think it would. Very quiet motor. No vibrations hardly at all. This is great. Now, of course, once I start putting the stainless steel, when you do buffing, you know, you don't just ram, you know, you don't ram the stainless steel, whatever it is, into the buffing wheel. You just kind of easy does it. Put your compound stick on both of them. Maybe one that's a little coarser than the other, and this one might be fine. And then you go from one to the other, you take your time. I'll demonstrate all of this. I've done this 1,000 times. Well, that looks a little better. Now I gotta get the car up on the lift and do a good sweep underneath. I've got probably a half a dozen screws and bolts laying around this floor, and I didn't have no idea where they went. Anyway, these things are looking pretty nice now. I've got them. They need to be buffed, and this one here looks better than the other one. But you know, if you don't have a core, these are sold by Bird Nest, and these are called the core. You know, you send in the old one to get the new one that's been re-chromed and all that. And if you don't have any cores and you need these for your 66, it'll cost you $470 plus tax plus shipping. We're talking $500 for 2 of these. Well, you know, not for me. I don't want to spend that kind of money. If I can salvage these, that's the decision I made. If I can salvage these, I will. Now this bolt right here is kind of bent, and the reason being the rubber thing that fits between this and the bumper was all deteriorated and flattened out. They just kept jacking it down to get it tight so it wouldn't rattle on the bumper. That's what that was all about, and they wound up bending it. But it's still solid. I can go ahead and use it. And this one here, I'll be taking my cutting blade with the rotary tool and cutting that one out. Maybe this afternoon, I don't know. I want to get it out of there, but you can see all the rust is gone. A little bit of a line down there as flash rust has developed, but a little more flash rust down in there. But we'll go ahead and put some rust reformer on that, and that'll take care of it. But all the rust is gone. Boy, that was some deep, deep rust. Really pitted. So, and then, you know, so what am I going to do about this one? When I take the bolt out, I can't get another one in. What am I supposed to do? That's going to be a lot of fun. Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. Unfortunately for us, we have a little bit of space here to play with between the edge and then this bottom plate. I'm going to take a bolt the same size, the same length, and I'm just going to weld it right there. Now, I'm a terrible welder, so don't expect much. But when I get done, I'll have a bolt just like this sticking out from it. It should be welded tight enough, you know, to jack it down to where I can get a, you know, a lock washer, and, you know, without bending it even further, or bending this one. I don't want to bend the new one. We'll see, but I think a welded bolt should solve the problem. About 3 years ago, I bought this polishing 14-piece aluminum polishing kit, and it had 3 stones in it, 3 of the compounds rather. This turned out to be a bad idea. I never really used it but a couple of times, and this was all I used it on, and it didn't turn out the way I wanted. I put it in a drill and tried it. Not what I wanted, so I just left it. However, this, you know, the compounds are still here. This is what the black is for removing heavy scratches. This is for giving it a high luster. This is for giving it a really nice luster. The way they describe it, a mirror luster. This is for mirror luster. This one's still wrapped in plastic. So we'll be using those as we, you know, we'll put it on the stone. We'll put it on the wheel as it goes around. You don't want to load it up, and you got to absolutely wear goggles with this all the time, because you've got pieces of this crap that'll come out and hit you in the face and get in your eyes. Especially if they're cheap, which is what these are. You know, it came out of Harbor Freight. And then these things here, if you get too much compound on this thing while it's going around, it'll also fly off and hit you in the eye. So don't be stupid, be smart. Use those goggles. You only got 2 eyes. You lose them, you're screwed. I'm ready to cut this baby off. I'm just going to cut it off right just like that. I got a screwdriver jammed behind it all the way down to where it's tight. And then this is nice and tight, okay? Now I can go ahead and just whack that baby right off there. You got to take your time. This wheel may be a little big. I may have to go out and trade it for a smaller one. Let me see. Yeah, it's a little bit too big. Let me get a smaller one. Alright, that's more like it. It'll fit right in there, no problem. Go nice and easy whenever you do this sort of thing. Nice and easy. Use low speed, and always wear gloves. Because these wheels, they can shatter. Pieces fly off. You don't know what's going to happen. Eye protection, gloves, and long sleeve shirt if possible. So let's go ahead and see. Now you go through nice and easy on this on a low speed. Maybe I can get started. I may have to hold it with one hand while I cut with the other. Take your time. I'm not in no rush. It's cutting through real good. Let me go ahead and finish it. I'm going to have to hold it still with one hand. And by the way, don't put a ton of pressure on this thing. Just easy does it. Unless you got to be at a hot date or something. I cut it for both sides, and then, you know, toward the middle. Now I should be able to just take a pair of pliers. It's thin enough in the middle. I ought to be able to just take a pair of pliers, wiggle it back and forth, snap it right off of there. As George Papard used to say on the A-Team, I love it when a plan comes together. We'll close out this video with a couple more quick things. I have put the rust reformer down in there, and I've also sprayed it with black paint mixed with primer over the top of the rust reformer, and they're all dry, ready to go. The last thing I'm going to do is spray it with undercoating. So the last thing I want to cover is straightening out. It'll be real quick. We'll show you how to do it better later. Straightening out this bent over, you know, stainless steel. I've been doing this for years. I know the tricks on this. Now most people would take a pair of pliers and say, well, I'll just straighten it up like that. No! They said, well, what about a pair of vice grips? You know, small vice grips or big vice? No! What about needle nose? Getting down in there? No! Don't use this stuff. It does nothing but scratch it up, and you'll never get a good straighten. Well, what do you use, John, if you don't use that stuff? Well, you can put some cloth over it. Maybe you do it. No. I guess you could put cloth if you want, but it's not necessary. There is a different set of pliers that you can buy. They're wide, flat tips. and they are not flat tips, but smooth, you know, no teeth on the inside. This stuff here will get down in there, and you do it a little bend at a time, little bend at a time. You work yourself back and forth, back and forth, back and forth like that until you get it done. We'll go over that at a later date. So until next time, this is John.